which, you know, has me a little worried, just because usually when I see the Page of Swords, I think of messages having to do with conflict. Now, this can also suggest you having clarity of thought, clear communication, and being brave. We shall see how this is going to play out. But I like that with, you know, free will and joy, because the Page of Swords is inquisitive, right? And this is like having that childlike mentality, that playfulness, right? But like really wanting to know things, you know. The only problem here is, depending on what's surrounding it, it could suggest that messages are coming through having to deal with things that you may not want to deal with. Now, you are coming in with the Four of Swords, which is needing to take a break and to take some time to meditate and to reflect on your actions. And then what is crossing you is strength. Absolutely. That's perfect. So, you know, I feel like with the Four of Swords, there is a need here to really reflect on, you know, not only the past and your past actions, but what your next move is going to be. So, like, these two are going to play big into the four here. But you are really tapping into your inner strength. And I do feel like the Page of Swords is like you heading out on a new path, but being brave and courageous. Not so much naive. That word in Sagittarius it doesn't even exist, you know. But you're definitely taking that minute to really think about things, like, you know, your next actions, the actions you've taken before. Now, the conscious mind, you've got the Page and the Knight of Swords. You are definitely moving forward into something new, and you're taking like this youthful mentality with you, which I actually like seeing. You know, and there's, again, when the swords show up immediately, I think clarity of thought. You know, there's clear thought, clear communication happening. The Knight of Swords is looked at as, you know, the messenger with the pure message, but he's delivering it in a harsh manner. And the other thing, too, with the Knight of Swords is, you know, this is action, this is movement forward. I mean, it's going. You're not going with the flow, you're going against the wind. You don't care what's in your path, you're headed there, no matter what it takes. And like the Page of Swords next to that is like doubled. It's doubled. But you're carrying like a youthful energy with you. But then at the same time, you're like really tapping into your wisdom, you know, and thinking about things before you actually take that action. Because the Four of Swords is no movement, right? But there's a part of you, you know, consciously wanting to manifest the ability to charge forward. And with strength and seeing the Knight of Swords, yes, absolutely. Now, the subconscious mind, man, justice. So I'm really curious to see what the past coming through is here. Justice, again, there's a need to make amends for past wrongs, past actions, reflecting on past actions. But then not only that, with justice, it's that fairness and that balance. The sword of decision and then the scales of balance, right? It's knowing that, and especially with the subconscious mind, to me, it's like you're focused on needing to have wrongs amended, but it's also the knowing that there will be fairness and balance in your life. But there's still like this look back on things. The past coming through, the Six of Swords, man, there's a lot of thinking going on for you guys right now. The Six of Swords is about moving away from conflict. Moving away from conflicting people, situations, whatever the case may be. In the past, you were like moving the hell away from it, right? Smooth sailings ahead. But moving away from that kind of conflict, you know, which may be where the Page of Swords is coming in. Because when you see that and you see justice, you know, it could have to do with like legal proceedings, things like that, right? Documents that may need to be signed for court, you know, when you're getting down to the mundane level, right? Like, you received some, like, conflicting messages that you didn't want to deal with. Because what comes in from the Page of Swords is the shit that we don't want to hear. Like, man, you know, where the Knight of Swords is like, hey, this is what's going on, right? And they're real harsh about it. The Page definitely is shit you don't want to hear. And in the past, you're like, yep, I'm out. I'm out. There's all this movement, but you're in the middle, like, really thinking about all this shit. But you're tapping into that inner strength, and still there's like this youthful feeling that's surrounding you. You know, youthful mentality, right? Your next move, ooh. The Three of Swords is the next move. It's like seeing it in, you know, the outcome. It's immediately a warning here. I almost feel like, you know, your movement away from conflict may be heartbreaking. I mean, you know, and then seeing the Four Swords there and this need for justice, it's like, but you have strength in between that. Like, you have the strength to deal with the heartbreak that's going to be going on, but I feel like, you know, that next move is saying that the next move that you take is going to lead into some heartbreak and some separation, you know. But you're definitely tapping into some strength because, again, there's bravery between the Knight and the Page of Swords. But there's definitely a need for some fairness and balance in your life, and you're really reflecting on shit, man, big time. Big time. But I don't like seeing the Three of Swords there because it you know, I mean, it's conflicting to joy, needing to be that conduit for joy, right? But there's like this difficult stuff that's like surrounding you right now, but with strength, you're fine. I mean, no doubt. But something needs to be amended. And it has to do with, you know, the messages that you've been receiving. Because again, the messenger of conflict, and I don't like it, you know. Your free will. Your free will is the ability to say yes and no to this shit, right? Acting on your free will. Being that free spirit. And moving the hell away from the conflict. But the subconscious mind is like, we need balance or we're going to end up feeling heartbroken. The way that you see yourself and the way that others view you. The Page of Wands, which, yeah, again, there's this youthful feeling that's surrounding you. And I have to wonder if maybe, you know, this doesn't have to do with children in your life. Now, seeing the Page of Wands, immediately I think of going after something that is bigger than yourself. But again, there's that part with that page that immediately says to me that you have the passion to do this. You know, there's a hesitancy here to continue on to the new journey, but you're going to do it. You know, following your passions, but a message is to follow new passions. But there's this need for fairness and balance first. The subconscious mind is like cluing into this fact that something may be going on that needs to be dealt with first before you skip town, is what I feel like. You know, because truly you're wanting to be that conduit for joy, right? And your environment, the Eight of Pentacles. So, you know, maybe this is having to do with a work situation. Seeing the Eight of Pentacles in your environment immediately suggests to me, you know, work, putting in hard work, right? Doing the work that's needed to balance the bullshit. Seeing the Eight of Pentacles in your environment, you know, again, to me says that you're putting in the work here that's needed, but it also feels like this has to do with a work situation. You know, something's not quite right with work. You know, and this could suggest you too moving into a new work situation where you may be happier. Because the Eight of Pentacles, especially in this deck, you know, the person is happy with the work that they're doing. They're pleased with it. They're showing off their skills. But man, there's some issues that need to be dealt with. The hell, Sag? Your hopes and your fears, and the Nine of Cups, you know, and I say this every time this card shows up because this card depicts it beautifully. Really thinking about what wish fulfillment looks like to you. You know, if you're truly trying to manifest your wishes and emotional fulfillment, you know, that's where you need to start asking yourself, what does that look like? And I almost feel like, you know, you're hoping that by moving away from the conflict that may be surrounding you, that you're going to have some emotional fulfillment, seeing what you truly want manifest, right? But you really need to think about, and that's what you're doing, thinking about what it looks like, right? Strength crossing you is, to me, and justice sitting there is saying that, the issues that you're dealing with, this is caused by somebody else. And you're like left in this position where you need to move away from it. But man, you're really thinking about shit. You're really thinking about the pain and the suffering, the need for fairness and balance and having wrongs amended. You're thinking about work. You're thinking about following your passions. You're thinking about wish fulfillment. Shit, Sag, you are like in your head right now. And your thoughts are like so all over the place. But it's like you're wanting to be that free spirit to move on when you need to, But unfortunately, your next move is saying that there's going to be some separation happening. The outcome, the High Priestess. Wow, Sag. Holy shit. Seeing that in the Four Swords, with the swords that are showing up, immediately I feel like, stuff is going to be brought to light here because the High Priestess is about unknown knowledge, and they really tap into with this one, right? She's got the tarot cards, rune stones, and right? Like, this is all the hidden knowledge being made known. You're going to have to work to get those answers, but, all that shit's going to come to light, In looking at it through the majors, that's where the possibilities lie, right? Before manifestation. But it's also about tapping into your intuition. But man, oh man, there are some serious conflicting issues going on, is what I feel like, with the Three of Swords, the Page of Swords, the Four of Swords. And this is all surrounding you right now. And then you have Justice. But strength being what's crossing you is saying that you're going to have the strength to move through all of this and get back to a place where you feel better, is what I feel like, where you can start to become that conduit for joy and start acting on your free will. We're going to pull some clarifiers for the High Priestess. Really? Really? Yep. That's where it comes in at. That's perfect. So, first of all, the Hierophant, right? A better spiritual understanding of your situation. And with the High Priestess, absolutely. That's what I love about the Hierophant in this deck. The Hierophant is attached to the fives. When all that shit goes wrong in our lives, we're trying to understand why, and we seek that spiritual understanding. And I love how they depict it in this deck because, man, you're really in your mind. You are really in your mind thinking about stuff. But your wisdom shines through here, especially with the High Priestess and the Hierophant coming out. And then the Four of Wands, there's this celebration. So out of the shit that you're dealing with, this is where all of this starts to come together. You're acting on your free will and being that free spirit and moving away from the conflict. You realize that there may be some separation and some heartbreak in doing this, but you're hoping to manifest wish fulfillment. And you do, especially with the Four of Wands, which is where joy comes in and you become that conduit for joy. You have to deal with some shit first. But man, you are tapping into your inner strength big time because you are moving away from this conflict. With the Six and the Knight, absolutely. Whatever you're having to deal with from the page, Justice is saying that there's going to be that balance. Your work, if this has to do with a work situation, I feel like some of you may be moving into a new work situation that's going to be a little bit more fulfilling for you. Now, on the other hand, the Eight of Pentacles, when you're looking at it with everything that's going on, this is definitely you putting in the work that's needed to start manifesting joy in your life. Absolutely. Page of Wands, which is perfect for you, right? Seeking new adventures, following your passions, Sagittarius, being the adventurers. But you're really in your head thinking about stuff. And I'm glad to see that the High Priestess and the Hierophant is what comes out of that. But you definitely have difficulties surrounding you. But you do the right thing. and moving away from it. And it's almost like with the Three of Swords being the next move, I feel like you already know it and you understand it, that by moving away from the bullshit, right, you know it's going to cause some heartbreak, whether it's on you or another person, but you handle it beautifully. And you come out in a perfect spot where you're celebrating the work that you've done, which is the Four of Wands. Renewal, absolutely, absolutely. I like seeing that. A renewal in spirit, especially with the Four of Swords and then the Hierophant. Beautiful. Truth. That's the other thing. That is the other thing with injustice and all the swords showing up. Truth. The truth being communicated, the truth being known, right? The truth being spoken. Surrender. And I feel like that's where joy comes into, because when you talk about, this is after the leap, right? There's a surrender there. There's a surrendering to the things that, may have been conflicting for you, and then just going ahead and tapping into your free will and acting on that and moving into this spot where you're creating things that are so much better for you. Man, Sag, there's some difficult stuff, but then, you really pull out of it, and it's through your own work, right? But you're really in your mind right now and you're thinking about a lot of things. You're going to be thinking about a lot of things, and they may have to do with conflict. But justice, again, is saying that those things will be balanced, and there's going to be this renewal. The truth will be made known. Again, the High Priestess, right? Unknown knowledge, secrets coming to light, the truth. And then surrendering to joy and your free will. All right, Sag, so I feel like for some of you, you're going to be dealing with some conflict, and it may have to do with like papers that need to be signed. I don't want to say it because I don't like the feeling around it. It could have to do with, divorce or separation. Now, regardless though, with justice being in the subconscious mind, it's saying that there's a need here for some fairness and some balance, and you know that because you are so in your mind right now. Between this, the High Priestess, the Hierophant, and then the Nine of Cups, absolutely, you're doing some really deep thinking about all the things that are happening right now. You're hoping to manifest your wish fulfillment, with it being in your hopes and your fears. And then seeing you come out with the High Priestess and then the Four of Wands and the Hierophant. Getting a better understanding of the situation that's happening around you right now. Secrets being made known. And I think that's where the truth comes in, especially with justice sitting there. And then looking at the Page of Swords. The truth is going to come out. The truth is going to be made known. And this is also about you speaking the truth, representing the truth, right? But with the High Priestess, I really feel like things are going to come to light here. Unknown knowledge. But it's also about you tapping into your intuition. And then with the Hierophant, getting that spiritual understanding. And you're going to be celebrating it, which is going to leave you in a spot where you feel like you are a conduit for joy. Your free will and your free spirit is telling you that there is renewal ahead and to surrender to the things that you cannot control. This situation is going to play out the way that it needs to. You need to surrender, go with the flow of the universe, and know that the truth will be made known, is what I feel like, especially with justice sitting there. But you acting on your free will and your free spirit has got you moving away from the things that are conflicting to you and moving into something that is so much better. And definitely you're going to be celebrating the work that you've done to get away from the conflict in your life. So even though there's going to be some situations here that may lead into separation and heartbreak, I really feel like you're going to do the right thing for yourself in moving away from this conflict and following your passions. Because again, there is an opportunity here for you to follow new passions. And you definitely, between the Four of Wands and joy have an opportunity to be that conduit for joy. And I love this one again because it says that, you don't know where you're going to land, right? But you're going to be okay. This is the moment after the leap, right? Which, brings to mind the Fool, and then you're looking at renewal. I'm so glad that this came out because, especially with the Three of Swords sitting here, there's definitely going to be a renewal in your life. But surrender to the things that you cannot control and know that the truth will be made known and that you are in a perfect spot right now through the work that you do to be a conduit for joy.